is that theoretical inquiry has as its natural stimulus, its natural habitat, if you like, life itself. So that the theoretical movement of thought is aroused by things that occur in the course of life, and as a result of which we find we stand back to try and understand what's going on. And the intellectual curiosity continues for largely theoretical reasons as well as practical reasons. But there is always the feedback loop of practice into theory and theory into practice. And I think that's well demonstrated by the history of philosophy, where you can see the relationship between crucial issues of the time and theoretical developments, as well in the stimulus of the theoretical direction as in the feeding back of the theory into the practice. So I find Dewey helpful in that regard, keeping philosophy in life context. Now, those comments, I see heads nodding as I say that. I see some eyes lighting up. I see some smiles on Brian's face and so forth. Anybody want to say something? No? Are you too captured by the second topic? Okay, let's move on to that. For the next 2 weeks, we're going to be dealing with existentialism and phenomenology. Now, don't confuse the two. We met the term phenomenology in reference to Hegel. And we should therefore remember that phenomenology is a method, not a position. It's a descriptive method rather than a philosophical theory. However, it's a descriptive method which was adapted and used by some of the 20th century existentialists. So our introduction to existentialism is going to have to be in terms of the 19th century roots in Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, both of whom are included in the Gardner Anthology, and both of whom you're going to be reading this week, are you not? I was wondering whether I asked you to do thesis statements. In the light of all the reading I'm going to have to do, I've just spent 8 hours reading examinations for my other course, and now I'm going to have to read these book reviews of yours this week. I decided that the quality of mercy towards myself is not strained, even though I'd like you to do those thesis statements, but I wouldn't impose that on myself at this juncture. So, so I won't do so. But do read. You'll find them intriguing, helpful. I'll be referring to them as we go along. Existentialism was a largely European philosophy. And I say was, because it really was a philosophical movement that blossomed in the first half of the 20th century. And in many ways is now passé. I'm inclined to look upon the activist 60s as marking the end of existentialism. You see, if the pessimistic existentialist was saying life is meaningless, it has no purpose, the 60s had too many meanings and purposes. And so it seems to me that there was a phase out in that context. It's not been recovered. Existentialism is not primarily, however, a theoretical position, a theory, a set of doctrines. It's not primarily a school of thought. It's more a focus of attention, of concern. A focus, that is to say, on human existence. Not on the essence of human nature. No, that would be essentialism, not existentialism. It's not a focus on essence, but on existence. On the problem of human existence as we experience it. And so some of the phrases we've been meeting in Whitehead and Dewey are very appropriate. Concrete experience. Not that abstractive kind of experience that John Locke talked about, but concrete experience. And the idea of the self-consciousness being the lens through which everything else is viewed. Very appropriate. Because it's self-conscious existence. The consciousness of existing in this kind of a world. That's what the existentialist is concerned about. Existence that can be meaningless or inauthentic. And the question is, how can it be authentic? How can it give meaning? Or how can we give it meaning? So I think you can think of this existential focus as a philosophy of human existence. Philosophizing about human existence. Human existence in a broken world. What does it feel like to live self-consciously, inwardly, in this kind of a world? Waste places. T.S. Eliot. And it's that self-consciousness of living in such a world is the thing. Do you, maybe it's too common an experience these days to be peculiar, but do you ever feel self-conscious in front of the camera? You see, I've gotten over being self-conscious in front of that thing. I just ignore it. Except now, when I'm talking to it. But self-consciousness in the face of one's own dying. Yeah. I remember when we buried my father-in-law. I looked down into the dark hole after the casket was lowered and said to myself, well, next it's me, my generation. You see. Now, it's that sort of self-consciousness which is not just an awareness, but an emotion-loaded awareness. You see? There's no self-conscious human existence that doesn't come loaded with feeling or anxiety or some other quality of that sort. what nowadays we call existential qualities of human existence. And so you find in the headings of the Kierkegaard selections words like dread, anxiety, melancholy. You see. Because these are the qualities of our self-conscious being. Now, what this is implying is that humans are not primarily rational animals ruled by reason. That Enlightenment vision is gone. We're not romantic creatures living in a romanticized kind of realm. Everything in the garden rosy. No, romanticism is gone. If you like, existentialism is romanticism turned sour. The pumpkin rotted. You see. Now what's Cinderella going to do? And this feeling is augmented in technological society. I'm not sure that existentialism would ever have arisen before the Industrial Revolution. But in an industrialized, technological society, there are themes like dehumanization, alienation. Yeah, that was a theme in Marx. Well, he and Kierkegaard were contemporaries, seeing different dimensions in the same problems. Alienation, ambiguity, meaninglessness. Because a self-conscious existence in an industrialized society with everything pressing in upon us is a world of fact without value, of existence without meaning, existence without essence, as Sartre puts it. And one German writer of this period, more a phenomenologist than an existentialist, Max Scheler, puts it this way: we are the first generation in which man has become fully and thoroughly problematic to himself, in which he no longer knows what he essentially is, but at the same time knows that he doesn't know, yet desperately wants to. Get the picture? Now, it's in that sort of a situation, the anguished self-consciousness at living in a broken world, it's in that sort of a situation that the approach of the existentialist is not going to be offering a theory